Harry got a second chance at life on the very day his parents laid out the profiles of the eldest daughters from City's 3 most powerful families and told him to pick one for an arranged marriage. Without a second thought, he shook his head. "I won't choose any of them." His parents were shocked. Why not? Because, he thought, his heart twisting in pain, he'd already married all 3 of them in his last life. Everyone in their circle knew that the Vance, Sterling, Croft, and Knight families were the 4 dynasties that ruled City. And Harry Knight was the only male heir among the 4 families, which was why the other 3 were eager to form an alliance with his. In his last life, when he first had to choose, he picked Willow Vance, believing with all his heart that they would live happily ever after. But after they got married, she was home maybe one day a year. She not only made him a laughingstock in their social circle, but died in a multi-car pileup while trying to protect a man named Tim. Following his family's arrangements, Harry then married Ava Sterling. But she didn't take the marriage seriously either, treating him like he was invisible. In their second year of marriage, she died in a high-stakes street race, all for Tim. That's when Harry got a reputation for being cursed, jinxing his wives. It wasn't until he was 30 that he married again, this time to Claire Croft. This time, their marriage was polite and stable, lasting until old age. But on her deathbed, Claire grabbed his hand with one final wish. "Harry, if there's a next life, don't choose me. I just want to be with Tim." Only then did Harry realize they had all been in love with Tim. That's why their dying words were all the same. "Don't choose me." And Tim? He was just the son of the Knight family's butler. An average-looking guy with no real talents, whose only skill was playing the victim. Harry never understood what he'd lost to him, or why they loved him so much they were willing to enter a loveless marriage just to protect him from their family's disapproval. Harry had spent a lifetime witnessing their undying love for Tim, and a lifetime learning one crucial lesson. He, Harry Knight, was not a supporting character in someone else's story. If someone didn't want him, he didn't want them anymore. So this time, he chose none of them. Instead, he gave his parents a new answer. "If I have to marry for an alliance, I want to marry Stella Thorne." Hearing the name, his parents stared at him in disbelief. Stella Thorne? The illegitimate daughter of the Thorne family in City? Why on earth would you suddenly want to marry her? Because in his last life, Stella Thorne ended up as the richest self-made woman in the world, topping the Forbes list, a titan of the business world with unimaginable power. If this marriage had to be for the family, Harry was going to maximize its value. Stella Thorne was a choice with all upside and no downside. As for love, he'd given up on that. So even though his parents disagreed, Harry came up with 1,000 reasons to convince them. City's economy is booming, and Thorne Industries is the top dog there. Haven't you always wanted to expand into City but couldn't because we have no foothold? Marrying her is the perfect opportunity. You've said it yourselves, Stella Thorne is ambitious, with a sharp, ruthless eye for business. She's destined for great things. His analysis won them over. After weighing the pros and cons, they decided to respect their son's wishes. They contacted the Thorne family, and the marriage was arranged. "Harry, we've settled everything with the Thornes. The wedding will be in 2 weeks." Hearing this, Harry finally felt a sense of relief. With time being so short, his parents rushed off to prepare the dowry gifts. He sat alone on the sofa, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. A few moments later, he heard footsteps at the door. Willow Vance, Ava Sterling, and Claire Croft walked in, their eyes immediately landing on him. "Harry, who did you pick?" Hearing them ask in unison, seeing the tense, serious looks on their faces, Harry felt a momentary daze. The 4 of them had grown up together, practically inseparable. But now, it was clear all that affection was just them treating him like a little brother. In his last life, Harry thought they had rushed over because they were excited. Now he understood. They didn't want to be chosen, which is why they looked so stressed. The thought sent a bitter pang through him, and his chest felt so tight he could barely breathe. After a long silence, he finally got his emotions under control and answered in a hoarse voice. "You'll know who I chose in 15 days. Seeing that he wouldn't tell them, the 3 of them grew anxious, wanting to press him for an answer. But before they could speak, Harry's phone rang. Tim was in a serious accident on the road. He's in the hospital in critical condition. But there are no rooms available. Please, can you help? Please save my son. Hearing the butler's hysterical, tear-filled voice, Willow snatched the phone from Harry, her own voice laced with worry. Which hospital? The line went quiet for a few seconds before the butler choked out the name of the hospital. Willow hung up, tossed a sentence over her shoulder, and rushed out the door. Harry, don't worry about the hospital. I can handle something this small. Ava and Claire immediately followed her without a second's hesitation. That hospital is owned by my family. I'll talk to the director. Harry, you just stay home and rest. I know a few top specialists too. I'll get in touch with them. Harry, don't you worry about a thing. They all used the excuse of helping him, but it was just a pretext to go see Tim. Their affection for him was so obvious. How had he not seen it in his last life? Watching their retreating figures, Harry let out a self-deprecating smile. He turned and went back to his bedroom, gathering everything that had anything to do with them. By the time he finished, it was dark. He opened his phone and saw a new social media post from Tim. Another day of being spoiled by the three ladies. The photo was a selfie of Tim in a VIP hospital room. He was drinking Claire's signature nutritional soup, Willow's watch was on the table, and Ava's coat was draped over a chair. Harry liked the post, then stared for a long time at the 3 boxes he had just packed. Inside were the gifts he'd received for his 18th birthday from Willow's aunt, Ava's uncle, and Claire's grandmother, the 3 families' heirlooms. Whichever gift he chose to keep would signify which family the knights were aligning with. Now that his marriage was set, it was time to give his answer. He called for a courier and handed the 3 boxes over. Please mail these to the addresses on them, but not until 15 days from now. Once the packages were sent, Harry threw everything else he'd collected into the trash. The luxury watches and cars they'd given him, the gaming gear, the videos and photos they'd taken over the years, the ties he'd designed for them himself. Every memory connected to them was now buried in the past. This life, Harry would not make the same mistakes. He focused on the wedding preparations, ignoring the outside world. After a few days of picking out suits and cufflinks, he came home to find Willow, Ava, and Claire all fussing over Tim. One was adjusting the thermostat, another was carefully cooling a bowl of medicine, and the third was draping a blanket over him, cooing and asking how he felt. Seeing Tim being pampered like a prince, a bitter smile touched Harry's lips. Their love was so blatant. How could he have been so blind in his past life? For a moment, his heart was a mess of sour, heavy feelings. Just then, Tim saw him and shot up like a startled bird, his face a mask of fearful respect. Mr. Knight, you're back. I'll go run your bath and prepare dinner immediately. Please wait a moment. He started to get up, but Willow pushed him back down. Tim, you haven't fully recovered. It's not like we don't have other servants. Harry, you can have someone else do these things. Ava and Claire chimed in. He's badly hurt, Harry. Just let him rest. If you're really short-staffed, we can send over a few of our maids. Just stop ordering Tim around. Harry hadn't said a single word since walking in, and already he was being painted as the villain. He let out a soft breath, his gaze hardening. I know he's my butler's son, not my servant. I've never forced him to do anything. Since you're all so concerned, why don't you just take him back to your homes? That way you can look after him all day and you won't have to worry. Tim's eyes widened, and he dropped to his knees, bowing his head to the floor. Mr. Knight, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so lazy just because I was sick. Please don't kick my father and me out. I'll go do my chores right now, right away. He knocked his forehead on the ground until it was red, crying as if he'd suffered the greatest injustice in the world. Seeing his tears, the faces of Willow, Ava, and Claire darkened. They quickly helped him up, shielding him behind them as they glared at Harry, their voices simmering with anger. Tim didn't do anything wrong, and you're just going to kick him out? Why do you have to bully him like this? He's injured, and he was still thinking about running your bath and making your dinner. Not only do you not care about his health, you want to throw him out? Don't you have any compassion? Now you've made his injuries worse. He'll be too scared to say anything next time he's sick. Are you trying to push him to his breaking point? Will you be happy if something happens to him? Seeing them instinctively jump to his defense, Harry's expression grew cold. I did nothing but suggest you could take him with you, and that's bullying? In your eyes, am I just some spoiled, unreasonable brat? So no matter what happens to him, it's always my fault? His sharp questions silenced the entire living room. Seeing their stunned, speechless faces, a profound sense of exhaustion washed over Harry. He lost the desire to say another word and went to his bedroom alone. He had just managed to calm down when Tim knocked on his door, holding a cup of coffee and looking timid. I'm sorry, Mr. Knight. Please don't be angry with the ladies. They were just worried about me, that's why they said those things in the heat of the moment. It's my fault, you argued. If you're going to blame someone, blame me. Having lived through his past life, Harry knew Tim was just putting on a show to stir up trouble, so he didn't fall for it. Put the coffee down and get out of my room. Hearing his icy tone, Tim looked even more hurt but didn't dare say more. He accidentally spilled the coffee. The scalding liquid splashed onto Harry, turning his skin red and raising a patch of blisters. He grunted in pain and shoved Tim away as he tried to help with a napkin. Tim used the momentum to stumble backward, hitting his head on a table and gashing his forehead open. A man's piercing scream echoed through the entire mansion. Before Harry even realized what had happened, Willow, Ava, and Claire kicked the door open and rushed in. Seeing Tim unconscious on the floor, his head covered in blood, all three of them panicked. Ava shoved Harry out of the way. Willow was the first to cradle Tim in her arms, and Claire pressed a cloth to his bleeding wound. They rushed out with Tim, not one of them sparing a glance for Harry, who had been knocked into a glass display case. The glass shattered, sending shards flying everywhere, cutting him with a dozen bloody gashes. Blood soaked his clothes. The pain made his face scrunch up, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Watching their figures disappear into the distance, Harry couldn't hold it in any longer. Tears streamed down his face. The heartache was unbearable. He bit his lip to keep from crying out, a single thought crystallizing in his mind. He had to get out of their world, to never cross paths with them again. After enduring the pain and getting his wounds treated at the hospital, Harry was at the pharmacy picking up his prescription when he saw a few familiar figures in the next room. Willow, Ava, and Claire were standing guard outside Tim's room, their eyes filled with unconcealed pain. I told you, Tim is too soft. Leaving him at the Knight's house was just asking for trouble. Once this marriage alliance is settled, we have to find a way to get him out of there. I don't want to see him get hurt again. Now that our parents know Tim is the one we really love, we have to guarantee his safety. So, no matter who Harry chooses, that person has to agree to the marriage without complaint. That's the only way our families won't go after Tim. Harry watched silently, a sharp pain stabbing at his heart. So that was it. That was why they had agreed to the marriage in his last life, even though they didn't love him. They thought they were sacrificing their own happiness to protect the man they loved. But it was his life they had destroyed. He lowered his head, and a laugh escaped him, a laugh that turned into tears. They could rest easy. This time, none of them would have to make that sacrifice. He pulled himself together, wiped his tears, and was about to leave when his phone went off. The sudden alarm startled the three women in the room. They came out and looked surprised to see Harry. What are you doing here? Did you come to apologize to Tim? How long have you been here? Did you overhear anything? You're covered in injuries too. What happened? Faced with their barrage of questions, Harry answered each one calmly. The cuts are from when you pushed me into the display case to save Tim. I'm here to get my wounds treated, not to apologize to him. He spilled hot coffee on me first, which is why I pushed him away. As for running into you here, it was just a coincidence. Hearing his explanation, the three women froze for a few seconds, their expressions growing complicated. Recalling the chaos after they burst into the room, Ava was the first to speak, impatiently. Tim didn't spill the coffee on purpose. He was injured and his hands were weak. Don't hold it against him. We saw all that blood when we came in and thought his life was in danger. That's why we were a little emotional. Sorry. Willow had also calmed down. We weren't trying to blame you earlier today. We just felt sorry for Tim, so we spoke up for him. Yes, we all grew up together. In our hearts, you've always been the most important one. Have you made a decision about the marriage? As soon as Claire finished, all three of them looked at him, their expressions tense. Seeing their reaction and remembering what he just overheard, Harry found it all deeply ironic. I've made my decision. The three of you, Before he could finish, the heart monitor in the hospital room started beeping frantically. The three women's hearts leaped into their throats. They spun around and rushed back into the room as nurses and doctors came running. The patient's second injury has caused further kidney damage. We didn't catch it, and the medication we used was inappropriate, leading to renal failure. His condition is critical. Hearing the doctor's diagnosis, Willow's eyes instantly turned red. What the hell are you people doing? How could you use the wrong medicine? Tim is so young. If you ruin the rest of his life because of your incompetence, can you bear the consequences? Ava grabbed the attending physician by the collar, her voice trembling with barely controlled fury. I'm giving you 30 minutes to come up with a plan that guarantees a full recovery. If anything happens to Tim, I will make you pay. Claire was on her phone like a madwoman, calling every contact she had. Professor, you're one of the country's top nephrologists. I need you to help save someone very important to me. Where are you now? I'll send my assistant to pick you up immediately. The room was in chaos, everyone frantic over Tim's condition. The hospital quickly assembled a team of specialists who came up with a treatment plan as fast as they could. The only option now is a kidney transplant, but finding a suitable donor could take time, and the longer we wait, the more dangerous it gets. Hearing this, the three women didn't hesitate. They all went to get tested for a match. The results came back quickly. Willow's kidney was a match. When the doctor handed her the surgical consent form, she signed it without a second thought and walked into the operating room. As time ticked by, while everyone waited anxiously, another problem arose. A nurse ran out, her voice filled with panic. The hospital's blood bank is low, and the patient needs a massive transfusion now. Ava and Claire, waiting at the door, immediately rolled up their sleeves. We have the same blood type as Tim. We can donate, but he's hemorrhaging. The blood from both of you won't be enough. You need to call more people. There's no time to find anyone else. The two of us will be enough. As long as we can save Tim, you can take as much as you need. The nurse couldn't argue with them and led them to the transfusion room. The red light outside the operating room flashed endlessly, blurring Harry's vision. From Tim's collapse to their blood donations, he had witnessed the entire saga. His mind was a complete blank. In his previous life, he wasn't there when Willow and Ava died for Tim. He only found out what happened afterward. Back then, lost in grief, he could never understand why they would give up their lives to save Tim. But after seeing all this, he finally understood. They just loved him. They loved him enough to sacrifice everything for him. Whether it was marriage or their very lives, they would throw it all away for him, one after another, without a second thought. That was why he could never win against Tim. Fortunately, in this life, Harry had already decided to give up. He wouldn't get tangled in their love triangle again. The light above the operating room door went out, and a doctor emerged, wiping sweat from his brow. Are you family? The surgery was a complete success. The patient should be waking up soon. However, the kidney donor will need to be monitored in the ICU for a while, and the two in the transfusion room have fainted from excessive blood loss. Can you manage to look after all four of them by yourself? Harry shook his head, his lips dry as he spoke in a raspy voice. I have no connection to any of them, but I can help contact their families. They'll be here shortly. With that, he sent a message to the Vance, Sterling, and Croft families, as well as to Tim's father, the butler, informing them of the situation. He was about to leave when he overheard a few nurses whispering, "No connection? I thought he was the husband of one of those three beautiful women. How could he be their husband? Would you stand by if your wife was willing to die for another man? I think all three of them are in love with that guy. Why else would they all be fighting to save him? Harry listened quietly, a silent smile on his face as he agreed with them in his heart. Yes, the one they loved was and always had been Tim, and he would never be their husband again. Dragging his sore, aching body home, Harry found his parents waiting for him in the living room. They frowned when they saw his injuries. Fearing they would worry, he quickly made up an excuse. Only after he assured them he would heal quickly did they relax and hand him a box. This is the engagement heirloom from the Thorne family. Keep it safe. Stella Thorne has also received the one we sent. The elders from the other three families just called to ask about the marriage alliance. They brought up Tim, saying the girls were just being kind-hearted and that you're still the only one they're interested in. We didn't know what was happening, so we didn't know how to respond. You'll have to handle this yourself. You're a grown man now, you know what to do. Your father and I won't interfere. Harry didn't want them to worry either and promised to take care of everything. Over the next 2 days, he had someone gather information on the Thorne family and Stella, doing his homework. Once he had a general idea, he went to the mall and bought gifts tailored to each family member's tastes. After a day of shopping, he returned home with a trunk full of presents to find Willow, Ava, and Claire waiting at his door. They had also brought a mountain of gifts, enough to nearly fill the living room. Seeing his confused expression, the three exchanged a look and began to explain. These are from our families. They sent us to apologize to you in person. You saw what happened that day. Tim's life was on the line, and he was injured a second time because of you. We were just emotional and you got hurt in the process. Harry, if you're angry, take it out on us. Don't get the older generation involved, and don't put all the blame on Tim. No matter what, he's a victim too. Harry then understood. Their families had forced them to come and apologize, and to plead Tim's case. He wasn't in the mood to argue with them and responded politely. Take the gifts back. I don't need them, and I'm not going to bother Tim over something so trivial. I'm tired. I want to rest. He rubbed his tired eyes and pulled his phone out of his bag. As he did, the gift box containing the Thorne family's heirloom tumbled out and landed at Willow's feet. She bent down to pick it up. What's this? Ava and Claire leaned in, and the moment they saw the box, their expressions changed. An engagement heirloom? Harry, you've already chosen someone? Who is it? Harry looked up and saw them about to open the box. He quickly snatched it back. His fierce reaction stunned the three women. Their eyes were locked on him. Who did you choose? Is it Ava or Claire? Or? Willow couldn't bring herself to say the last word. Me. Harry knew she was afraid that he had actually chosen her. He forced a smile and met their gaze. What if I have? What if I haven't? You don't need to be so nervous. It has nothing to do with you anyway. Ava suddenly grabbed his hand, her voice urgent. What do you mean it has nothing to do with us? If you're getting married, it can only be to one of us three. Neither the Sterlings, the Vances, nor the Crofts have another daughter of a suitable age. Claire closed in as well, her eyes fixed on him. We know you couldn't make a decision before and we never pushed you. But now that you have, just tell us. We want to end this torment too. So, marrying someone you don't love, even before it's official, feels like torment? He took a deep breath, opened the box, and took out the exquisite, luxurious cufflink from the Thorne family, holding it up for them to see. This is my answer. Satisfied? It wasn't the Sterling's imperial green jade bracelet, nor the Vances 20-carat diamond ring, nor the Crofts' ancestral jade pendant. The three of them then noticed the trunk full of things he'd bought and finally understood. It's not one of our family's heirlooms, but a new cufflink you bought today? How much was it? We'll pay for it. Consider it an apology gift. Harry stared at the sparkling diamond in his hand and said nothing. Willow, thinking he liked the cufflink, took the initiative to put it on for him. Ava gave him an approving thumbs up, complimenting how handsome it looked and how it suited his style. Claire took several pictures with her phone, saying she wanted to keep them as a memento. For the first time since his rebirth, Harry saw genuine smiles on their faces. And the reason they were so happy was because they thought he hadn't chosen a fiancé yet. They were celebrating their narrow escape. In that moment, Harry found the situation both absurd and laughable. He was about to say something, but before he could, Tim's sudden appearance interrupted him. His eyes lit up at the sight of the gifts piled in the living room. Why are there so many gifts all of a sudden? Are they for Mr. Knight? The moment the three women saw Tim, their gazes stuck to him like glue. Seeing the irrepressible smiles on their faces, Harry spoke calmly. They were for me, but I don't like them. If you want them, take them. With that, he headed to his bedroom, ignoring them completely. Tim wore an expression of disbelief, pointing at himself. Me? I can take them? Mr. Knight, you're not joking, are you? How could I possibly deserve gifts from the young ladies? Hearing the dejection in his voice, the three women felt a pang of sympathy and quickly ushered him toward the pile of gifts. If Harry said they're yours, then they're yours. These suits, watches, and game consoles are all the latest models. They'll look great on you. Why wouldn't you deserve them? Things only have value when someone uses them. Tim, don't sell yourself short. You deserve the best things in the world. Go on, open them up. We'll help you pick out what suits you. The sound of the three of them cooing over Tim faded as the door closed, leaving only silence. The cold touch of the cufflink felt foreign to Harry. But he thought if he wore it long enough, he would eventually get used to it. When Harry woke up, he felt dizzy, like he was coming down with a fever. Somehow, Willow, Ava, and Claire heard the news and rushed over. He was sick for 3 days, and they came to visit every day, practically moving into the Knight mansion. But they spent very little time with him. Most of the time, they were downstairs with Tim, teaching him chess, playing ball, helping him prune flowers in the garden, taking pictures of him and painting his portrait. Harry saw it all but said nothing. Occasionally, they would come upstairs to check on him and notice many things missing from his room. Harry, where's that limited edition figurine I gave you a few years ago? You used to love those Yu-Gi-Oh cards I got you. You insisted on displaying them in the most prominent spot. Why aren't they there anymore? And what about the photo we all took together on our 18th birthday? Where did you hide it? Faced with their questions, Harry brushed them off with a few casual excuses. Although they were suspicious, they didn't press the matter. By the time his birthday arrived, his fever had mostly subsided. Before the party, his parents came to pick him up and had a quiet word with him. All the important people in our circle will be there tonight to celebrate with you. Your father and I were thinking tonight would be a good time to announce your engagement. What do you think? Harry was about to nod when he heard the sound of a glass shattering behind him. He turned to see Tim standing there, pale and stunned. Mr. Knight, you're getting married? Harry gave a slight nod without offering any explanation. After all, everyone would know soon enough. At 7 p.m., the birthday banquet began. The hall was filled with guests, buzzing with excitement. The moment Willow, Ava, and Claire entered, dressed in elegant evening gowns, all eyes turned to them. I'm so jealous of Harry Knight. 3 beautiful childhood friends, and he gets to pick one to marry. When will I ever be that lucky? What's the use in being jealous? This was a childhood betrothal. No matter who he picks, it's a perfect match between powerful families. I think Harry's about that age, right? Do you think he'll announce his choice tonight? I'm so curious who it will be. Harry listened to their chatter, his expression as calm as still water. But the 3 women, who had also overheard the comments, grew flustered and hurried over to him. Harry, you're going to announce the engagement tonight? Why didn't you tell us beforehand? This is my private business. It has nothing to do with you, so why would I tell you? Harry's cool reply was met with their annoyed retorts. How can you say it has nothing to do with us? Is the bride at your wedding going to be someone else? Stop messing around at a time like this. Just tell us, who did you choose? Just as they spoke, Harry's parents walked to the center of the stage, nodded to the crowd, and picked up the microphone. On behalf of the Knight family, I'd like to extend our sincerest thanks to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend our son's birthday party. Besides celebrating his birthday, we have another happy announcement to make today, regarding my son Harry's marriage. At this news, the entire hall erupted in applause and cheers that seemed to go on forever. The most excited were the elders of the other families, who stood up and waved Claire, Ava, and Willow over to their tables. Seeing this, the three women's hearts pounded in their chests, their faces turning dark. But they knew they had to maintain their composure at such an event, so they forced smiles and reluctantly returned to their families. Harry's parents gave him a look and he understood. He straightened his suit and walked up to join them. Just as he took his place, a screech of static filled the air. Harry, along with all the guests, turned to see a familiar face on the large screen. It was Tim, crying his eyes out. "Willow, Ava, Claire, I know I'm just a butler's son. I don't have Mr. Knight's good looks or his family background, so I accepted my fate long ago and never dared to hope for anything more. It wasn't until you came into my life and told me you liked me that I started to feel a glimmer of hope. I'll never forget the time you left Mr. Knight all alone at the campsite and drove back through the night to comfort me when I had a nightmare. I'll never forget how you took me to see the northern lights under the guise of a business trip to celebrate my birthday. And I'll never forget how you saved my life, giving up a kidney and donating blood until you passed out. By the time you see this video, I'll be on the roof of the Knight Industries building. I know one of you has to marry Mr. Knight, but the thought of you becoming his wife, of having to cut all ties with me and never seeing me again, it's like a knife in my heart. I know you're not doing this willingly, that you're being forced into this marriage by your families. I know that if you weren't worried about me being targeted by your families, you would never agree to marry him. I don't want to see you trapped, sacrificing your happiness for me. So today I've decided to end my life. Once I'm gone, you'll be free. Go and pursue the love you truly desire." The moment the 5-minute video ended, a dead silence fell over the hall. Everyone stared, wide-eyed and in disbelief, at Willow, Ava, and Claire. Everyone except Harry. When he first saw the video, his mind had gone blank for a moment. But thinking back to Tim's state when he left the house, he wasn't surprised. He looked at the three women, who appeared as if they'd been struck by lightning, and at the elders beside them, who looked on the verge of fainting from rage. He let out an imperceptible sigh. The people who would find this hardest to accept were surely these family friends who had watched him grow up. After all, his own parents knew he wasn't marrying any of the women who had once betrayed him. They would feel nothing but relief mixed with shock. But these elders, who had been kept in the dark, eagerly awaiting an alliance, would probably never mention marriage again after learning what their daughters had done for Tim. And just as he predicted, once the elders recovered, they immediately called for their bodyguards to forcibly restrain Willow, Ava, and Claire, who were trying to run to Tim. Publicly humiliated like this, they slammed their hands on the table, their faces flushed with fury. "Today is Harry's birthday. Where do you think you're going instead of staying here to celebrate with him? To find that butler's son? I'm telling you, as long as we're alive, you will never have anything to do with him again." The moment they heard Tim was going to kill himself, the three women lost all reason. Their minds were filled with nothing but his safety, wishing they could fly to his side and save him. So they ignored the jeers and whispers around them, the furious elders before them, and the wall of bodyguards surrounding them. Is a birthday more important than a human life? If you don't let us go today, and something happens to Tim, the three of us will never marry Harry Knight. With that threat hanging in the air, they kicked off their high heels, grabbed wine bottles, and smashed them in front of the bodyguards. In an instant, the banquet hall descended into chaos, filled with screams. Watching the three of them break through the cordon and leave without a backward glance, Harry, standing on the stage, felt a self-deprecating smile curve his lips. Even in this new life, they still abandoned everything for Tim. He lowered his head, touching his chest, feeling his heart pound so fast it felt like it would burst. Aside from an overwhelming sense of bitterness and suffocation, he no longer felt any pain. The guests below, seeing the women run off, all turned their attention to Harry. All three of his childhood sweethearts are in love with the butler's son? Oh my God, Harry Knight has been completely humiliated. How pathetic. It's his birthday too. Now the brides have run off and the party's ruined. Is he going to have a breakdown right here? Faced with these speculations, Harry remained as composed as ever. He gently patted his still shocked parents' shoulders, took the microphone, and spoke with calm confidence. There's been a bit of an unexpected incident that has disturbed everyone. On behalf of my parents, I apologize. Furthermore, I would like to announce that my wedding will take place the day after tomorrow. My fiancé is Stella Thorne of M City's Thorne family. We welcome you all to attend the ceremony. His few short sentences plunged the entire hall back into stunned silence. Harry didn't care about their reaction. He helped his parents off the stage and left the hotel. The car ride was deathly quiet, the sound of breathing sharp and clear. Just before they got out, his parents let out a heavy sigh and looked at their son with pity in their eyes. Harry, did you know they were in love with Tim? Is that why you insisted on calling off the marriage and choosing Stella Thorne? Yes. You can't force something that isn't meant to be. Stella and I may not have deep feelings for each other, but she's completely dedicated to her career. She would never cheat. We might not have a passionate love, but we can have a respectful partnership. For me, that's enough. His parents were surprised by his conviction. You trust Stella Thorne that much? Harry nodded, reassuring them gently. Yes, because I've done my research on her. But he kept the real reason to himself, buried deep in his heart. In his last life, Stella Thorne never married and was never linked to anyone romantically. To her dying day, she was known in the business world as the formidable Ice Queen. So he was confident that this step he was taking was absolutely the right one. After the disastrous birthday party, Harry went home and began to meticulously pack his things. The wedding was to be held in M City. The day before, the Thorne family sent several private jets to deliver the bride price and pick up the groom's party. Just as Harry finished packing and was about to head to the airport, he received a message. It was an address from Willow, asking him to come over now. They wanted to talk. He checked the time. His flight wasn't for another 4 or 5 hours, so he agreed. When he arrived at the private room and pushed open the door, 3 dark gazes fell upon him. They didn't speak, and Harry remained silent as well. After 10 minutes, Willow finally took a sip of her wine and spoke in a low voice. Harry, we're sorry for causing a scene at your birthday party yesterday, but it was a matter of life and death. We couldn't just stand by and watch Tim die, so you had to be inconvenienced. This isn't the first time you've inconvenienced me. I don't need your apology, and you don't need to give it. Harry's cold attitude made the 3 of them increasingly uncomfortable. Ava's and Claire's voices became hurried. What's done is done. Getting angry and saying these things won't change anything. Now the elders of all our families are furious. But Tim is innocent and shouldn't be dragged into this. You've always been a favorite of the elders. If you just act sweet and talk to them, they'll surely calm down. If you can just persuade the elders not to go after Tim, then no matter which one of us you choose for the marriage, that person will cherish you and love you for the rest of her life. How about it? So, this meeting was still about protecting Tim. Harry just felt tired. No need. After you left yesterday, I already made a public announcement. Before he could finish, Willow cut him off. Announced what? Who did you choose? His gaze shifted between them, but in the end, he didn't say it directly. He just said, the engagement heirlooms your 3 families sent all those years ago, I've already given them to a courier. They'll be delivered to you tomorrow. Hearing this, the 3 of them assumed he had returned 2 of the items and were about to press him on who he had chosen when a call came from the hospital. Ms. Vance, Ms. Sterling, Ms. Croft, Mr. Tim is awake and is trying to go to the rooftop again. The news made their faces change instantly. They grabbed their coats and prepared to leave. Watching them go, Harry called out to them for the first and last time. Before we part ways, could you all wish me a happy marriage? For some reason, hearing this, Willow, Ava, and Claire all felt a strange, intense feeling wash over them. Their lips parted, wanting to ask him why he was asking them to say that. But the words stuck in their throats. They looked at each other, then said in unison, happy marriage. The words had barely left their mouths when the hospital called again. They didn't linger and left immediately. Harry didn't try to stop them. After watching their car disappear, he went home. He deleted their contact information, then picked up his luggage and boarded the helicopter sent by the Thorne family. This life, he hadn't chosen any of them. Instead, he chose to fly toward his own brand new life. By the time Willow, Ava, and Claire rushed to the hospital, Tim had already been talked down. He lay in bed, looking at them with teary eyes, as if accusing them of not being there for him. "What took you so long?" As he spoke, tears rolled down his cheeks. The three of them immediately felt their hearts ache and surrounded him. "Don't cry, we're here now, aren't we?" Willow gently wiped the tears from Tim's eyes, her gaze full of sympathy. "That's right. Your body is still weak, you can't have emotional highs and lows. Just rest and recover. We'll all be with you." Ava watched Willow's gesture, feeling a step behind. "Yes, we'll all be here with you," Claire added, not to be outdone. "But you still have to marry Mr. Knight. Just thinking about it breaks my heart. I don't want to see you forced by your families to marry someone you don't love for my sake. A lifetime is too long." After saying this, Tim lowered his head dejectedly. Where the three couldn't see, a cold smirk played on his lips. When he looked up again, his pitiful expression had returned. Seeing him act so selflessly, the three of them felt incredibly touched. The strange feeling they'd had when they saw Harry earlier was long forgotten. "Tim, you know we like you and you still say these things. Even if one of us marries Harry, you will always be the most important person in our hearts. Tim, you don't have to worry. You'll always be the one we like the most." Tim looked at the three women making all sorts of promises to him, his heart filled with triumph. "Harry Knight, so what if you're the young master? I can still take everything that's yours." Meanwhile, after seeing the three of them leave, Harry paused for a moment at home before heading to the airport. He arrived much earlier than he expected. An idea suddenly struck him and he called home. "Dad, replace the butler. It's not appropriate for Tim to continue living in our house." "All right, you go on ahead. Your mother and I will be there later." After hanging up, it was time for takeoff. He turned off his phone and went to sleep. Harry's parents had already been planning to replace the butler. They had initially felt sorry for him, a single father raising a son, and let him bring the boy to live with them. Now, the result was a massive public embarrassment for their family. They immediately notified HR and sent the butler a termination contract. When the butler received the notice, he stormed into the study without even knocking. "Mr. Knight, what did I do wrong? Why are you firing me? You're not a good fit for our family." Seeing the butler's defiant face, Harry's father felt nothing but annoyance. It seemed he had been too lenient with the staff, letting them forget their place. "Even if the young ladies of the Vance, Sterling, and Croft families like my son, that's just because your son isn't charming enough." Listening to the butler's incessant chatter, Harry's father once again regretted his past kindness. He called security to drag the man out and had the maids throw out his belongings. The butler was furious about being kicked out. Was it a crime for his son to be charming? It was clearly the Knights who were being unreasonable. He called Tim at the hospital and brazenly demanded that Tim find him a well-paying, easy job. Tim, upon hearing that the Knights had kicked both of them out, was also enraged. He had lived in the Knight mansion for so long. What right did they have to just throw them out for no reason? He immediately started crying to the three women. "Willow, Ava, Claire, what should I do? The Knight family kicked my father and me out because of what happened at the birthday party." He continued, sobbing, "I know Mr. Knight is angry with me, but what did my father do wrong to be treated like this?" The three of them immediately tried to call Harry to tell him to retract the dismissal. But all they heard was, "The number you have dialed is switched off." Instantly, their expressions turned sour. "Tim, don't worry. I won't let your father be homeless. I have a spare villa. You and your uncle can stay there for now. Tim, I have one too." Watching the three of them fight over who would house him, Tim was moved beyond words. "Thank goodness I have you." After arranging a place for Tim and his father, the three women returned home. The next morning, just as they were about to visit Tim at the hospital, they each received a package from Harry containing their family's heirloom. Willow stared at the imperial green jade bracelet in the box. Harry hadn't chosen her. Why not her? Didn't Harry like her? When they were little, Harry loved following her around, sweetly calling her Willow. He said he wanted to marry her when he grew up. Did he choose Ava or Claire? The same scene played out in the other two households. Ava and Claire looked at the heirlooms in their hands, both feeling a little uncomfortable. What did Willow have that she didn't? The three of them, as if by telepathy, went to each other's houses, only to find them empty. Finally, they arranged to meet in a private room at their usual restaurant. When Ava arrived, Willow was already there. Seeing the heirloom in her hand, they both assumed Harry had chosen Claire. An awkward silence fell between them. When Claire arrived, she was confused by her two friends staring at her. She took out her own heirloom and held it up. "This is my family's ancestral jade pendant." Harry returned it. "Which one of you did he choose?" Seeing the pendant in her hand, the other two looked at each other in disbelief and took out their own heirlooms. Harry returned my family's heirloom too. "Mine as well." A sudden silence descended upon the three of them. "If not us, then who could it be?" Claire broke the silence. "Besides us, which of the four great families has anyone else qualified to marry Harry? Maybe Harry is just throwing a tantrum, waiting for us to appease him," Ava said, trying to convince herself as much as the others. "Yes, that must be it. It has to be." They all started talking at once, the scene becoming a bit chaotic. Suddenly, a phone rang, interrupting their speculation. Willow saw it was Tim calling. For some reason, she didn't really want to answer. The phone rang out. Then the other two's phones started ringing, and they also ignored them until her phone rang again. "Just answer it. What if it's something important?" Ava and Claire said in unison. Willow finally picked up the phone and put it on speaker. "Hello, Tim, what's wrong?" "Willow, are Ava and Claire with you?" "Yes. I have you on speaker, they can hear you." As soon as Willow finished, Tim's excited voice came through the phone. "Willow, Ava, Claire, I'm so touched. You stood up to your families for me and refused to marry Harry." The three women looked at each other, completely bewildered. They had been reluctant, but they had never refused the marriage. Sensing something was wrong, they interrupted Tim's excited chatter. "Tim, what happened?" "Huh?" The voice on the other end sounded confused for a moment, then continued, "Didn't you all refuse the marriage? Isn't that why Harry is now marrying that illegitimate daughter from the Thorn family in M City?" "What?" The three of them were completely shocked. Harry was marrying someone from the Thorn family in M City? When did this happen? How did they not know? As heirs to powerful families, they knew about the Thorn family. Stella torne. They admitted she was capable, but she was an illegitimate daughter, the one thing legitimate heiresses like them despised most. How could an illegitimate daughter like Stella Thorne be worthy of Harry? Was Harry so desperate to spite them that he would stoop this low? They all pulled out their phones and started searching for news. They saw posts from various gossip sites. Thorne family's illegitimate daughter, after rising to power, wins the favor of S City's Harry Knight, further solidifying her position. Why would the heir of a great family choose an illegitimate daughter? No matter how much they wanted to deny it, they couldn't ignore the fact that Harry was marrying someone else. "Willow, Ava, Claire, are you still there?" Tim, not hearing a response, called out their names. But the three of them were too shocked by the news to pay any attention to him. Willow hung up and immediately called her assistant, telling her to book the next flight to M City. "And for us too. We're going together to bring Harry back. How can he just randomly marry someone out of spite?" Ava was on the same page. When her assistant told her that all flights to M City were sold out for the day, she immediately used her family's influence to arrange for a private jet. After the call, the three of them looked at each other, speechless. Tim's phone rang again, but clearly, none of them were in the mood to deal with him. They all chose to turn off their phones. At the hospital, Tim stared at the disconnected call, his good mood plummeting. When his phone finally said the number was switched off, he was so angry he smashed it. "Harry Knight." Tim spat out Harry's name with hatred, his eyes filled with malice as he looked at the shattered phone. He had a nurse buy him a new one and then immediately left the hospital to find the three women. Arranging for a private flight took time. They kept calling and texting Harry. "Harry, Don't just marry some illegitimate girl out of spite. Harry, come back and we can pretend nothing happened. Harry, don't be childish. In M City, Harry saw their texts and figured they must have received the gifts he sent back. Harry, the welcoming party is here. Harry's mother looked at her son in his suit, her eyes welling up. Mom, Dad, I'll be fine. He couldn't promise them he would be happy, so he could only make them this promise. By leaving those three, he wouldn't repeat the mistakes of his past life. His parents knew what he meant, but in their position, choices were often not their own to make. They hoped their son would be as happy as they were. Harry, your parents will always be your rock. Harry smiled at his worried parents. He blocked the three women's numbers and put his phone aside. He adjusted his tie and waited for his bride, a bride who had nothing to do with Tim. Hearing the automated message, the three women knew what it meant. Harry had blocked them. They could only keep pushing for the flight to be ready. Stella stood outside the door, looking at the closed room. The thought that her long-awaited groom was inside made her heart flutter with joy. She never thought she would have the chance to marry the person she had been dreaming of. She didn't know why he had given up his three childhood friends to marry her. Perhaps fate had taken pity on her after all these years of hardship. But whatever the reason, the outcome was in her favor. After a shower of red envelopes, the people inside finally opened the door. Seeing Harry sitting quietly on the bed, she felt her heart was about to leap out of her chest. Stella forced herself to remain calm as she walked toward Harry. Harry heard the door open and saw his bride approaching. He looked up at her. The moment their eyes met, both of them froze. Stella was stunned by how handsome Harry looked all dressed up. Harry was surprised by the emotion in Stella's eyes. Wasn't this an arranged marriage? Why did she look like her greatest wish had just come true? If he wasn't sure he had never seen such a handsome face before, he would have thought he'd been with her at some point without knowing. As Harry carried her to the wedding car, Stella felt like a victorious general. Though her expression was still stoic, anyone could see she was overjoyed. Harry's parents were also a bit puzzled. Stella was different from what they had imagined. Perhaps their son's choice was the right one after all. In the wedding car, Stella didn't know what to say, and neither did Harry. The atmosphere was a bit stiff. They both started at the same time. Harry, seeing her nervousness, suddenly relaxed. You go first, Harry said with a smile. Are you hungry? I brought some snacks for you. Today will be tiring. Stella looked at her groom's lean figure with some concern. Yes, thank you, Harry replied politely out of habit. Don't be so formal with me. Hearing Harry thank her, Stella felt a little down. Harry was now genuinely curious about his new wife. She was quite different from the rumors. Seeing the tips of her ears turn red, he could tell that Stella had no reservations about this marriage. When Harry emerged from the dressing room in his suit, the crowd was once again captivated by his handsome features and the elegance of his attire. The stylist, looking at Harry's flawless skin, sighed once more that no styling could ever do justice to his looks. Bride, do you promise to honor the vows of marriage, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, in success or in failure, to love him, comfort him, respect him, and protect him? And will you be forever faithful to him throughout your lives together? Stella looked into Harry's eyes and answered firmly, I do. The fiery passion in her eyes was almost too much for Harry to handle. She liked him. Harry was absolutely certain. Where did this feeling come from? Harry was a bit dazed. Groom? Do you? The officiant, seeing the groom lost in thought, asked again. Across from him, Stella nervously squeezed his hand. Harry sensed her anxiety and reassuringly squeezed her fingers back. I do. Harry gently and solemnly kissed Stella's forehead. Even though Stella had handled most of the wedding preparations, Harry was still exhausted. After washing up and lying on the bed in their new room, he started to feel nervous about their wedding night. When Stella came out of the bathroom, her gaze was fixed hotly on Harry, who was lying on the large red wedding bed. Harry had many questions for her, but now was clearly not the time. Lights out, Harry stammered. Stella left a warm, yellow bedside lamp on. The bed moved rhythmically without stopping. It wasn't until dawn was breaking that the motion on the large bed finally ceased. Meanwhile, the three women who had taken a private jet arrived at the wedding venue only to find an empty banquet hall. They knew they were too late and immediately drove to the Thorne estate. They were stopped at the gate, and the tight security prevented them from forcing their way in. The three could only wait in the car, every minute and every second an eternity of torture. They had never felt time pass so slowly. By the time the sun came up, no one from the main family had emerged from the Thorne estate, only the staff going out for supplies. As a servant drove out to do some shopping, the three of them exchanged a look and followed. Once the car turned a corner, they cut it off and forced the servant to take them inside. After a rather unfriendly negotiation, the servant let them in. As soon as they entered the Thorne estate, they headed for the main house. The servant, once free, contacted security, and the estate's alarm blared. The alarm woke Harry. Annoyed, he kicked the person holding him tightly. "What's going on?" "Someone broke in." "You go back to sleep, I'll go check." Once Stella left, Harry couldn't sleep either. He went downstairs to find three unwelcome guests being restrained. "What are you doing here?" Willow, Ava, and Claire, who had been arguing with Stella, stopped the moment they saw Harry descending the stairs. Their eyes immediately fixated on the uncovered kiss marks on Harry's neck. Suddenly, the pain in their chests was so intense it felt like they couldn't breathe. They turned and glared at a smug-looking Stella. It was as if they wanted to tear a piece of flesh from her. Stella completely ignored their stares, quickly walking over to Harry and helping him to the sofa. Harry shot a glare at the culprit who had made his back sore.
Stella råbte her nose.
"Hungry?"
Yeah.
He then gestured for her to explain the situation with the three women in the living room. They held a kitchen staff member hostage to get into the villa and were caught as intruders. "Let them go. They're like sisters to me." Hearing her husband say this, Stella signaled for the security to release them. Hearing Harry introduce them this way, the three of them forgot their embarrassment for a moment, feeling only a deeper ache in their hearts. Harry. The moment they were free, the three of them tried to approach Harry, only to be blocked again. Looking at the person blocking them, the three could only stand their ground and speak to Harry from a distance. "Harry, you can't just get married out of spite. Come back with us. I won't mind what happened with her. Come back with us and we can pretend none of this ever happened." Their words infuriated Stella. She was about to say something but was stopped by Harry raising his hand. He gave his new wife a reassuring look before turning to the three women. "Willow, Ava, Claire, don't think so highly of yourselves. Me marrying someone out of spite? Don't you find that ridiculous? And as for whether you mind or not, is that important to me? Who do you think you are to say such things? It seems I was too good to you in the past, giving you the wrong impression. Are you worthy?" With that, he went to have a meal with Stella. Stella, seeing her husband's merciless words toward the three, had a face full of happiness. She waved for the bodyguards to throw the women out, so they wouldn't ruin her husband's appetite. "Harry." Their voices faded into the distance. After their meal, Harry looked at the gloomy sky outside. He listened as the butler told Stella that the three women were still standing at the gate, refusing to leave. "Ignore them," Harry said, then looked at Stella. "You don't have to deliberately let me know these things. You should know my relationship with them. Now that I'm married to you, it means I've completely let go of the past." Stella, having been seen through, wasn't embarrassed at all. "Now, let's talk about why you look like you've known me for a long time." Hearing this, Stella's smile faltered for a moment. Was she supposed to tell her husband that she had a crush on him ever since she found his student ID and fell for his photo? And that later, seeing him help someone who was being bullied, she was deeply attracted to him? Stella thought for a moment and decided to be honest. "I went to the same high school as you. How come I don't remember you? I hadn't returned to the Thorne family yet. I left after they took me back."
"No wonder."
A clap of thunder startled them both. A heavy rain began to fall outside. They paid it no mind and continued talking, wanting to learn more about each other. The three women in the rain seemed to have been forgotten. They stood stubbornly in the downpour, letting the rain soak them. The rain was heavy, but it couldn't wash away the pain in their hearts. Don't I like Tim? Why does it hurt so much that Harry is married? Claire's words left the other two speechless. Seeing their silence, she continued to whisper, "Do you think Harry will ever really forgive us? He won't. Harry has the softest heart for us. He'll come out when he knows we're in the rain. Yes, he cares about us the most." The three of them stood in the rain, deceiving themselves, until Willow's body couldn't take it anymore and she collapsed. The other two tried to help her up, but they fell down as well. When Tim arrived at the Thorn estate, he saw this scene. The three of them lying collapsed in the rain. He quickly called an ambulance and took them to the hospital. The patient just donated a kidney recently and hasn't recovered. She's been in the heavy rain and has a high fever that won't go down. These two have high fevers due to recent blood loss and not recovering properly before getting soaked. In the hospital, Tim felt exhausted looking after the three of them. He constantly wiped their foreheads and kept an eye on their 4 drips. Claire and Ava were the first to wake up. Seeing they were in a hospital room, they both thought Harry had brought them there. Looking at the still unconscious Willow and their own weak bodies, they didn't feel so bad anymore. Footsteps came from outside the door. Both of them thought it was Harry and stared eagerly at the door. Before they could finish their thought, Tim walked in. Both of them looked utterly disappointed. "Ava, Claire, you're awake." Tim was pleasantly surprised and didn't hear them say Harry's name. "I was so worried about you." He walked toward their beds and reached out to touch Ava's forehead, but she flinched away. "You?" Tim's eyes instantly turned red. "I'm fine. Go take care of Claire," Ava said, for some reason not wanting him to touch her. "I'm fine too. You should go take care of Willow." Seeing Tim's hurt expression, Claire, for some reason, didn't feel like comforting him either. "You're all being so mean." He turned his head away, waiting for them to coax him. After a long while, no one paid him any attention. He felt something was wrong. He turned back to see both of them silently staring at the ceiling, lost in thought, completely ignoring his mood. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Willow wake up. "Willow, you're finally awake. You have no idea what they—" Willow had just woken up to Tim's incessant chattering, which gave her a headache. She couldn't help but cut him off. "Shut up." Tim froze. What was happening? Why were all 3 of them treating him like this? Seeing Tim's tears, Willow only felt annoyed, not the sympathy she used to feel. Yesterday, standing outside the Thorn estate, they had all seen into their own hearts. They were in love with Harry, which was why they couldn't accept him marrying someone else. Their feelings for Tim were just pity for his perceived weakness. To win Harry back, they had to get rid of Tim. Tim looked at the 3 of them, all lost in thought, and felt a growing sense of unease. He didn't know what to do, so he decided to continue playing the victim to win their sympathy. "The 3 of you are so cruel. I ignored my own weak body to take care of you with all my heart, and this is how you treat me when you wake up." Willow, Ava, and Claire looked at the crying Tim and couldn't help but think of Harry. If it were him, he would never make a big deal out of doing something small. He would just care for them and do everything quietly. Still, he had taken care of them. They finally spoke. "You've worked hard. I'll transfer you some money. Buy yourself something nice. I'll find you a quiet job. You can go back. I'll find you an apartment. You and your father can move out of the villa." Hearing them say this, Tim forgot to cry for a moment, just standing there stunned. "Are you trying to cut ties with me? Harry is still angry with us." "It would be better if you left," Willow said, looking at him expressionlessly. "He's already married. You don't have to be forced to marry him anymore. Why is this happening now? Who said we were forced? You don't love him at all. Shut up. Since when is it your place to talk about our feelings?" All 3 of them looked at him coldly. Ever since he had seduced them, Tim had never been looked at this way by them. He couldn't help but remember when he first arrived at the Knight's house and met them. They were just as cold back then. All his years of effort to drive a wedge between them and Harry, to make them treat him well, had now been undone. He couldn't accept it. "Harry is already married. You ruined his birthday party for me and refused to marry him. That was just a few days ago. Have you forgotten?" Tim cried out in desperation. Harry doesn't care about you at all. If he really cared about you, he wouldn't have let you get soaked in the rain and faint without even coming out to check on you. Shut up, the three of them shouted in unison. Being reminded of this again made them all furious. Looking at the hysterically crying Tim, any last bit of pity they had for him vanished. Did Harry say something to you? He's already married and still trying to stir up trouble. He's such a bastard. He kept cursing Harry loudly, nothing like the victim he used to pretend to be. Perhaps this was his true self. If you continue to say these things, I promise you'll regret it. Willow looked at him coldly. Tim immediately remembered they were the heiresses of the 4 great families. They had been willing to spoil him, to always be gentle and polite in front of him. But that didn't mean that's who they were. He had personally seen how viciously the 3 of them had tormented someone who had offended him. Tim froze, his back covered in cold sweat. He continued to play dumb. You just woke up, you're not thinking clearly. I won't hold it against you. I'll go get a doctor. With that, he quickly left the room. The moment he was out, his face twisted in rage, his eyes dark with malice. Harry Knight, why don't you just die? Why don't you die? Passing nurses were startled by his expression. But he quickly composed himself and went to get them food. To maintain his current lifestyle, he had to cling to them. Having tasted the life of the upper class, how could he be willing to return to a normal life? He had already obtained all of this. Ever since Harry found out about Stella's secret crush, he had been trying to reciprocate her love. The newlyweds were inseparable, and their feelings for each other grew quickly. There was just one thing Harry couldn't handle. Although he had been married 3 times in his previous life, his wives had all treated him as if he didn't exist. He had never experienced the pleasures of love. Since marrying Stella, she would cling to him every night until the early hours. He had to set a rule, only once a day. But her once would last for hours, until Stella was finally kicked out of the bedroom. Hugging her pillow, Stella looked at the closed bedroom door and pitifully apologized to the person inside. Honey, I was wrong. I won't do it again. Please forgive me just this once. Harry, hearing her pathetic voice, remembered the time he had softened and let her in, only to not leave the bedroom the entire next day. His softening heart immediately hardened again. Go sleep in the guest room. I'm going to sleep. Don't bother me. Seeing that playing the victim didn't work, Stella obediently hugged her pillow and went to the study to handle company business. She refused to sleep in the guest room. Sleeping in separate rooms was bad for a marriage. She could only sleep soundly with Harry in her arms. Honey, I'll take you to the hot springs later and give you a back massage. Hugging Harry, Stella's face was full of contentment. Looking at the person who acted like she couldn't live without him, Harry's anger vanished. After breakfast, the 2 of them went to the hot spring resort. Looking at the elegant scenery of the resort, Harry casually took a picture and posted it on his social media. The 3 women, scrolling through their phones, saw Harry's post. They could feel his relaxed and joyful mood through the screen. They immediately sent the photo to their assistants and had them find out where it was. After getting the address, the 3 of them pulled out their IVs, changed their clothes, and took a car to the hot spring resort. Tim returned to find the 3 of them rushing off. He quickly put down his things and followed them. By the time the 3 of them reached the resort, it was several hours later. Harry and Stella had already finished their soak and were having a meal. Stella, you said you were taking me to relax, but then you... He couldn't bring himself to say the rest. Thinking about Stella's actions in the hot spring, his face flushed. He glared at her with a look of spring in his eyes. Stella was aroused by Harry's glare, but she knew that if she didn't appease him, she might be kicked out of the bedroom again tonight. Honey, I deeply realize my mistake. Don't be angry. Eat something, you must be exhausted. The fuming Harry bit into the steak she offered him, as if venting his anger, glaring at her while chewing. But what he thought was a fierce glare, in Stella's eyes, was incredibly cute. Her heart was melting. She kept feeding Harry until he couldn't eat another bite, then slowly began to eat her own meal. When Willow, Ava, and Claire found Harry, They saw him smiling warmly at the woman beside him as she ate, his eyes full of affection. The atmosphere between them was so sweet, as if there was no room for a third person. This scene deeply pierced their hearts. They felt like they couldn't breathe. This used to be their exclusive privilege. And now there weren't many people left in the restaurant. The three of them walked over with heavy expressions. The couple eating didn't notice them, thinking it was just a waiter passing by. It was only when they noticed them lingering for too long that they looked up. The moment he saw them, Harry's smiling face fell. "What are you doing here again? Didn't I make myself clear last time?" Harry's sudden change in expression hurt them again. "Harry, we came here specifically to find you. We want to talk to you. Can we?" Willow asked cautiously. "What do you have to talk to my husband about?" Stella said protectively. Even though her husband had told her he no longer had any feelings for them, she still didn't want him to be alone with them. After all, they had known each other since childhood, for over 20 years, and her husband was so soft-hearted. "Harry." The three of them ignored Stella, their eyes fixed on Harry. Harry didn't want them to continue harassing him, so he agreed to talk to them alone. He reassuringly kissed Stella's lips, and after she left, he looked coldly at the three standing women. "See, talk." His double standard, so different from how he treated Stella, made Willow, Ava, and Claire feel even worse. Outside the restaurant, Stella kicked Pebbles out of boredom. She saw a man in a white t-shirt with an ordinary face come up to her, staring at her with teary, lifeless eyes. Thinking she was in his way, Stella moved aside. Tim saw her move, and the pitiful expression on his face stiffened for a moment before he quickly readjusted. "Are you Harry's wife?" Stella looked at the strange man in front of her and didn't answer. "I'm the son of Harry's butler. Harry has some misunderstandings about me. He likes the young ladies of the Vance, Sterling, and Croft families, and the three ladies are rather special to me, so he often targets me." He even raised his hand to wipe away a tear. "I came to apologize to Harry. I hope he doesn't make a hasty decision and marry rashly, only to regret it for the rest of his life. After all, he loves the three ladies very much." As Tim was racking his brains to slander Harry, he didn't notice the woman's expression had changed from impassive to dark. Are all manipulators this pathetic these days? Unable to listen anymore, Stella interrupted his rambling. "You?" Tim was speechless. "I just don't want you to get hurt. Why are you so ungrateful? The three ladies you mentioned are the ones clinging to my husband right now, right? They're so special to you, but you don't look very well. They've done a poor job of taking care of you. Unlike me, my husband has been glowing since we got married. A rat from the gutter like you isn't even worthy of shining his shoes." If she didn't want him to go in and disrupt their conversation, she wouldn't have bothered wasting her breath on this sick man. "If you're not grateful, fine, but why are you insulting me?" He looked deeply hurt and turned to leave. "Stubborn woman. Harry, why are you so lucky to leave three powerful families and still have such an excellent woman?" As he turned, Tim's face darkened, cursing Harry. He thought no one saw his change in expression, but it was all clearly reflected in the glass. Stella's cold voice came from behind him. "Hey, you face-changing manipulator, don't let me find out you were cursing my husband. You don't want to know the consequences of offending me." Tim's footsteps faltered. He was about to turn but suddenly saw the restaurant's glass wall, reflecting his entire transformation. He could only lower his head and walk into the restaurant. As soon as he entered, he saw Willow, Ava, and Claire confessing their love to Harry. "Harry, I love you." Tim stopped in his tracks, standing there quietly listening. After they all said it in unison, they quietly observed Harry's reaction. However, Harry showed no expression and casually poured himself a cup of tea. "Harry, I know I was too late in understanding my own heart. I was bewitched by Tim before, thinking you were arrogant and spoiled. It's all my fault. We grew up together, and I was deceived by his pitiful act and misunderstood you." She took a limited edition figurine from her pocket and held it up to Harry. "Harry, I know I hurt you before, and you're angry. Look, I bought you a new one of the figurine you threw away. Please don't be angry anymore. Come back with me and we can start over." Harry, I know I was wrong too. As soon as Willow finished, Ava immediately took out a set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards from her pocket and held them up. Look, the cards you threw away, I got you a rarer set. You'll always be my little prince. Come back with me. Claire immediately took out a photo frame from her pocket, containing a picture of them at 18. Harry, look, I had the photo reprinted. We were never apart for the first 20+ years of our lives. No one knows you better than we do. Come back with me, and I'll continue to spoil you like before. All three of them held out their items, waiting for Harry's response. Harry saw that they were finished and let out a small laugh. He looked into Willow's eyes and said to her, Willow, you know we grew up together? I thought the person who grew up with you was Tim. After all these years, you misunderstood me because of his few words. Don't you find that funny? He took the figurine and casually threw it on the ground. It shattered into pieces, parts scattering in all directions. Ava, don't you feel ashamed saying these things? The four of us went camping together, and you drove the other two back in the middle of the night, leaving me alone in the wilderness, not caring if I was scared, and taking the only vehicle. Is this what you call your little prince? He picked up the cards and slammed them on the ground. The rare cards were damaged beyond repair, just like their relationship. Shards of the cards flew toward their legs, embedding themselves in their skin. And you, Claire, do you remember pushing me for Tim's sake, causing me to get hurt? I really feel like knowing you all these years has been my bad luck. He took the photo out of the frame and tore it to pieces. Looking at their dejected expressions, he spoke coldly. Willow, Ava, Claire, the best apology you can give me is to never appear in front of me again, because seeing you brings me nothing but bad luck. You've only brought me misfortune. Like a while ago, when you ruined my birthday party and embarrassed me in front of all of S-City's high society. So, from now on, never show your faces to me again. If you continue to harass me, I won't hold back because of old times. You're just unwilling to accept that the person who always followed you around is no longer doing so. That's all I have to say. With that, he left the restaurant without a backward glance. As he passed the entrance, he saw Tim standing there and gave him a look of disdain. Harry's expression made Tim snap. It was that same condescending look again. When he first entered the prestigious academy because of the Knight family, all the rich kids looked down on him. Although Harry wasn't bad to him, he wanted to be like him, to be looked up to by everyone, not to be mocked as a poor kid polluting the academy's air. That's why he tried everything to take what was Harry's. Slowly, his relationship with the three ladies improved, and the people at the academy started to flatter him. But Harry always had that superior attitude, looking down on him like a clown. Harry's existence was a constant reminder that everything he had was something Harry was born with. He hated Harry with a passion. The three women, after being berated by Harry, stood there stunned, looking at the scattered figurine parts, the card shards in their legs, and the torn photo on the ground. No one spoke. Harry refused to go back with them, said they were bad luck, that knowing them was a misfortune. Harry's words were like a sharp knife stabbing into their hearts, twisting until they were a bloody mess. All three of them felt immense pain. No one moved, just stood there silently, tears falling. The tears dripped onto the floor, forming a small puddle. After what seemed like an eternity, Willow raised her head, wiped away her tears, and said in a low voice, Harry, I won't give up. I will work hard to earn your forgiveness. Ava, as if spurred on, added, I don't believe you can let go of all our years together so quickly. Claire also chimed in. Harry must be just too hurt, that's why he said those hurtful things. It's not like you can appease someone in one go. Though they said these things, they couldn't help but ask themselves, will not giving up work? Has he really let go so quickly? Is he really just saying hurtful things because he's sad? The three of them stood up, moving their stiff legs, and left the restaurant together. They didn't even notice Tim standing nearby. The ignored Tim looked at their retreating backs, his heart filled with rage. He remembered how he had first gotten their attention by protecting them from some muggers, although he had hired those muggers himself. But the result was good, wasn't it? They accepted him, his life at school got better, and even his life at the Knight's house improved. His father even got a raise because of it. He knew from a young age that you had to be ruthless to get what you wanted. He took out his phone and sent a text message, then laughed neurotically. As soon as Harry left the restaurant, he saw Stella staring at him unhappily. He quickly walked up to her and threw his arms around her, hugging her tightly. Seeing his joyful leap toward her, Stella's anger had already dissipated, but she still pretended to be cold. "So you remember your wife was waiting for you outside? I thought you had forgotten about me, talking for so long." Knowing full well that Stella wouldn't stay mad at him, Harry was happy to appease her. "Honey, let's go home." He smiled, his eyes wide and pitiful as he looked at Stella. Stella, who had always been weak to him, immediately fell for his act. She was still a little jealous, but she could use this to her advantage tonight. Harry, unaware of Stella's little schemes, happily linked arms with her and walked to the car. It wasn't until they got home, had dinner, and were in bed that he realized how petty women could be. He had only talked to them for a short while, but the seemingly magnanimous Stella was now tormenting him in bed. He didn't know what other women were like, but he really couldn't handle this one. Tim followed the three women back to the hospital. Seeing them lying in their beds again, he smiled and walked into the room. "Willow, Ava, Claire, I brought you dinner. See if you like it." His cheerful voice didn't elicit any reaction from them. Tim's smile faltered for a moment, but he didn't show it. Even though no one was paying attention to him, he continued setting out the food. After setting it up, he went to each of them to get them to eat. The three, who hadn't eaten all day, finally got out of bed and ate. Tim served them like a servant, putting food on their plates. After they finished eating, they looked at the busy Tim and thought, if only it were Harry. When Tim finished, they spoke. "Thank you for your trouble recently. What do you want?" "Anything. We'll give it to you." Hearing them say this, Tim knew what they meant. They were determined to cut ties with him. Well then, don't blame him for being cruel. His heart was full of resentment, but his face remained pitiful. He looked at them with teary eyes. "Is that what you think of me? That I only took care of you because I wanted something?" The three of them just watched him silently. The tears that used to work on them now seemed to have no effect. He wiped his tears, pretending to be strong. "I understand. I don't want anything. Can you just go shopping with me one last time tomorrow?" He looked heartbroken, lowering his head and clutching his chest. After a long moment, he looked up at them. As a farewell. "Okay." Claire, moved by his act, finally spoke. "Okay." Willow and Ava were hesitant, but hearing Claire agree, they exchanged a look and nodded. The next day, the weather was beautiful, perfect for shopping. The three of them were dressed casually. Tim looked at their clothes a little displeased, but thinking about what was about to happen, he couldn't be bothered to argue. The four of them set off. Tim was the only one talking, with Claire occasionally responding. The other two were silent. No matter how hard Tim tried to liven things up, they remained unmoved. Finally, he fell silent too. He thought about their past shopping trips and compared them to now. The difference almost made him lose his composure. After reaching their destination, Tim purposefully led them toward an intersection. When he got there, he looked around until he saw a familiar license plate, then continued walking with them. "Willow, Ava, Claire, I heard there's a really good restaurant up ahead. Let me treat you to one last meal to thank you for taking care of me all these years." "Okay." The three of them, already tired of shopping, agreed. Tim walked ahead, so they didn't notice the traffic light change. It all happened in an instant. Tim turned to see if they were keeping up. His eyes widened, and he shouted, "Watch out!" With a bang, Tim pushed the three of them aside and was hit by a car. The three of them, pushed to the ground, were initially annoyed at him for suddenly knocking them over. But then they looked up and saw Tim lying in a pool of blood. Tim, Willow, Ava, and Claire screamed. Willow, coming to her senses, immediately called for an ambulance. The other two carefully lifted his body. "Tim, how do you feel?" "Tim, are you?" Tim, silently cursing the driver's incompetence, knew his plan had worked when he heard them call him Tim again. He tried to look as handsome as possible, saying weakly, "As long as you're okay." Then, as if he couldn't hold on any longer, he passed out. Waiting outside the emergency room, the two of them were anxious, their minds in turmoil. They had been planning to distance themselves from Tim, but now he was seriously injured because of them. "Ava, Claire, guess what I just saw on the security footage?" The late arriving Willow's face was full of disbelief. "What?" they both asked, looking up at her. "This car crash was planned. By who?" Thinking of Tim lying in a pool of blood, any dissatisfaction they had with him vanished, replaced only by pity. The driver ran off and hasn't been caught yet. But the bodyguards found the driver's phone at the scene. It has a text message sent to Harry. "See for yourselves." The two of them stared at the familiar number. "Don't worry, Mr. Knight. I'll get the job done. Don't forget what you promised." "Harry?" Willow stood there stunned, unable to say anything else. "Impossible, this has to be fake." Claire threw the phone away in anger, as if not looking would make it not true. "I don't believe it either, so I'm going to ask Harry. Are you coming with me?" Ava couldn't believe Harry would do this to them either. "Let's go." Just as the three of them were about to find Harry, the operating room doors opened, and Tim was wheeled out. "The patient is not in any serious danger. He just needs to rest and recover," the doctor said before leaving. The three of them looked at the pale Tim on the hospital bed, their eyes full of pity. Perhaps because the anesthetic was light, Tim slowly opened his eyes. Seeing the three of them surrounding him, he smiled, his eyes crinkling. "Good, you're all okay." The three of them were moved. Even in this state, he was still worried about them. Their determination to get justice for him grew stronger. "Tim, you rest first. We found something at the scene related to Harry. We're going to ask him about it." "Harry?" He seemed confused about why Harry would be involved, his eyes full of doubt. This car crash might have been planned by Harry. Why would Harry do this to us? Hearing this, Tim's eyes widened in disbelief. "You rest first. We're going out for a bit. Okay, be safe. Don't get hurt, I'll be worried." He blushed and lowered his eyes. The three of them patted his head and left. After they were gone, Tim stared at the door, a cold smile on his lips. "Willow, Ava, Claire, go and have a falling out with your beloved Harry. It would be best if you never spoke to each other again. That way, my position will be secure." He took out his phone and sent a message to the driver, telling him to hide well and not get caught. The thought of the four of them tearing each other apart made Tim so happy that even the pain in his body seemed to lessen. The three of them arrived at the estate and were once again stopped at the gate. This time, they didn't wait foolishly. They kept calling Harry from different numbers and even tried to drive through the gate. Annoyed, Harry finally came out to see them. Of course, Stella and a group of bodyguards were with him. They all looked mentally unstable, and Stella was extremely worried. "Harry, do you hate us that much?" As soon as Harry appeared, Willow shouted at him. A confused Harry had no idea what was going on. "We just made a small mistake, and you're willing to disregard all our years together and try to have us killed?" The thought that Harry had arranged for someone to kill them made Ava's heart ache so much she could barely breathe. "Harry, you've really disappointed us." Claire also looked at him with disappointment. Harry hadn't said a word since coming out and was already being accused of so much. "Didn't I tell you not to bother me again? What are you barking about now? Tim is lying in the hospital. How can you be so heartless and say such things? Harry, you hired someone to hit us. We won't hold it against you, but he injured Tim. You have to?" After listening for a while, he finally understood why they were here. Harry truly thought the three of them were brainless idiots. "Are you brainless? Can't you see such a simple frame-up? Stella, can you find that driver?" He then ordered his men to search for the driver. After speaking to Stella, he turned back to the three of them. "I didn't want to get involved with you and Tim. Although Tim is a troublemaker, the main problem is that the three of you are brainless and believe whatever you hear." He took out his phone, unblocked them, created a group chat, sent some things, then left the group and blocked them again. "Take a good look at what your precious Tim has done." The three of them heard their phones buzz repeatedly. They opened the messages, and their faces grew darker as they watched. It was all security footage from the Knight's house. Whenever Tim saw them appear, he would fall and get hurt in front of Harry. After they helped him up, he would say some ambiguous things. And they, like idiots, would blame Harry, not listening to his explanations and defending Tim. The videos were very clear. It was all intentional on Tim's part. The last video was of the thugs who had cornered them at the academy, bowing and scraping before Tim. It was obvious they knew each other well. Their relationship had been based on a lie from the very beginning. While they were still in shock, news came from Stella's side. "Let's go. I'll take you to see the driver." The three of them, dazed, followed the couple into the car. When they arrived, they saw the driver on his knees in front of them, begging for mercy. "Young ladies, I was desperate. To pay off my gambling debts, I listened to that man." Willow took out a photo of Tim from her phone and showed it to the driver, asking him to identify him. The driver immediately said it was him and even showed them their contact phone, revealing everything. The three of them looked at the driver's phone, at Tim's vicious plan and his mockery of their stupidity. Feeling like they had been played, the three of them were furious and took their anger out on the driver. Then, looking at Harry, who was standing by watching their humiliation, they were filled with shame. "We're sorry." For the first time, they sincerely apologized to Harry, promising never to harass him again before leaving. Harry watched their retreating figures and thought to himself, as long as they were in their current positions, he would likely have endless trouble. He took out his phone and sent some videos and recordings to the heads of the three families. He left the rest to his parents. They would help him push things forward. Back at the hospital, the three of them looked at the peacefully sleeping Tim with rage in their eyes. They called their bodyguards to take him to a villa they had just bought. They had originally planned to use it for their convenience when visiting, but now it had a new purpose. Tim, dragged to the villa, still didn't know what was happening. He was woken up by rough handling. He tried to call out but was gagged and had a hood put over his head. When he saw light again, he found himself in a basement-like place. Sitting in chairs in front of him were three very familiar people. Willow, Ava, Claire. What's going on? He had just saved them. Shouldn't they be treating him like a prince? What was happening now? Did they find out? Impossible, not so quickly. "Tim, take a good look at these before you speak." She signaled for the bodyguards to wheel out a monitor, which played the videos Harry had sent them and the evidence from the driver. After watching, Tim knew that nothing he could say would help. He could only try to use tears to gain some sympathy, but the three of them were long immune to his tears. No amount of crocodile tears could hide his viciousness. "Tim, don't you like getting these little injuries to get our pity? From now on, you'll be experiencing these little injuries constantly. Happy? We're indulging your special hobby. Don't you like living in a villa? You can live in this villa for the rest of your life." Listening to their malicious words and seeing their sick smiles, Tim felt fear for the first time. He shouldn't have provoked them. "Please let me go. I'll never appear in front of you again. I was wrong, I was really wrong." His face was a mess of snot and tears. He couldn't care about how he looked while crying anymore. He liked villas, but he could imagine that his life in this villa would be hell. The three of them left without caring if Tim was truly sorry or just trying to deceive them again. It didn't matter. He would never leave this villa. Exhausted, the three of them flew back to S-City. They didn't dare to look for Harry again. They had hurt him too much. But as soon as they got home, they were hit with a bombshell. They had lost their positions as heirs and had been disowned by their families. The three families had them all confined to a single sanatorium. Their living conditions were even worse than Tim's. After completely losing Harry, their families had given up on them and started training replacements. Having lost everything, they couldn't bear it. They coughed up blood and fell into a coma. In their coma, the three of them seemed to have the same dream, watching Harry's previous life from a third-person perspective. 2 months later, the three of them woke up looking like ghosts. They had been trying to find a way to get their family's forgiveness, but now they had lost all their spirit, aging 10 years in an instant. Young as they were, their hair had turned completely white. After a year in the sanatorium, on a very ordinary afternoon, the three of them wrote an apology letter to Harry. They used bed sheets to hang themselves in the bathroom. By the time the nurses found them, their bodies were cold. The apology letter never reached Harry. It was thrown away as trash by a janitor who could barely read. By the time Harry heard about their deaths, the three of them had already been buried. He hadn't seen them since they left that day. To him, they were just strangers. Harry cut off the person on the other end of the line and shared some good news. Mom, Stella's pregnant. His mother's attention was immediately captured by her future grandchild. She and his father started planning to wrap up their business and go to M-City to see their son and daughter-in-law. After setting a date, Harry hung up the phone, let out a breath, and put the matter of the three women behind him. "Honey, come and try my new dish." Stella's voice came from the kitchen. "Coming."